Okay, every teacher knows there are certain conversations that are just high stakes. And right near the top of that list is that one well intentioned but super tricky question from a parent about whether their child is gifted. So today, we're going to build a really clear roadmap to get you through that conversation.
And there it is, the question. It's a moment that's just filled with hope for a parent, and let's be honest, a lot of pressure for a teacher. It's coming from a place of love, but one wrong step in how you answer can cause a whole lot of confusion. So let's get this right.
All right, so the very first step to answering this question well is to kind of look behind the words themselves and figure out what's really being asked, because it's almost never a simple yes or no question. It usually goes a lot deeper than that.
See, this is what's going on underneath the surface. When a parent asks if their child is gifted, what they might really be asking is my kid okay? Or am I doing enough as a parent? And that's exactly why our answer has to be so accurate and kind and consistent. Trust is totally on the line here. So, how do we build that perfect response? Well, it all comes down to one single fundamental idea. Once you get this, everything else just clicks into place. And that is the huge difference between gifted characteristics and gifted identification.
And this chart really lays it all out. On the left, you've got gifted characteristics. You can think of these as the behaviors you see with your own eyes in the classroom every day. But then over on the right, you have gifted identification. That's a totally separate, formal process that the school district runs. Your observations, they're super valuable for sure, but they're just one piece of the puzzle. The final call is made by a committee that looks at a whole bunch of different data points.
So, what do these characteristics actually look like? Well, you might see a student who just gets new ideas like that, or one who makes these amazing, unusual connections that other kids don't. It could be the child who's always asking these super deep questions, or the one who gets intensely focused on one topic. Oh, and look at this last one. They may not always get top grades. That's a huge myth we need to bust. Being gifted doesn't always mean a perfect report card. And this is just so important to remember. Seeing one of these traits, or even having a student who gets straight A's, does not automatically mean that student will be formally identified as gifted. This is probably the single biggest idea we need to get across to manage everyone's expectations.
Okay, we have the foundation set. Now let's get to the really practical stuff. Think of this as your playbook, the exact words to pull out when that question comes your way.
But you know what? Before we even talk about what to say, we have to cover what not to say. Because even when you mean well, some phrases can accidentally create false hope and really undermine the whole official process.
You're going to want to avoid these phrases at all costs. Things like, oh, I'm sure they'll qualify, or yes, I think they're gifted. It might seem helpful in the moment, but it sets a parent up for some serious disappointment if the committee ends up reaching a different conclusion. Saying these things can actually break trust in the long run.
All right, enough of what not to do. Let's flip this and talk about what you absolutely should say. These next scripts are amazing because they're supportive, they're accurate, and they keep the process clean while still being really helpful to parents.
I love this first one. It's a great go-to for pretty much any situation. You start by saying something positive about the child's strengths, which is exactly what the parent wants to hear, but then you immediately and clearly pivot to the formal process and tell them the next step. It's positive, but it's also really precise.
Now, this second script is perfect for when you need to gently but clearly define your role. It basically says, here's what I can do for you. I can share my observations. And here's what I can't do. I can't make the decision. It puts the ball back in their court and empowers the parent to take the next step if they want to.
And this third one is just wonderful for reassuring a parent. It validates what they're seeing in their child, but it also normalizes it. It lets them know that lots of students show these traits, and the formal process is just how we figure out who really needs those specialized services, all based on clear district rules. So, you've had the conversation, you've pointed the parent towards making a referral. Now what? Let's pull back the curtain on that whole process so it doesn't feel like some big mystery, but more like a simple, clear path.
Okay, you have got to set realistic expectations from the get-go. A referral is the start of a review. It is not a guarantee of getting into the program. It's a way for the team to collect information. It is not an automatic ticket to testing. Getting this clear right up front saves everybody a lot of heartache down the road.
So what does this path actually look like? Well, it's basically 4 steps. First, someone, a parent, a teacher, submits the referral form.
Second, the school's team gets together and looks at all the data they already have, grades, observations, that kind of thing. Third, and this is a big one, if they need more info, then a student might get recommended for some extra assessment. And finally, the committee looks at the whole picture and makes the final call. It's a very deliberate, thoughtful process.
Okay, let's bring it all home and focus on what your true role is in all of this, because it's actually a really powerful and supportive role to have once you're clear on the boundaries. This is it. This is your golden rule. You are an observer and you are a guide. You are not the gatekeeper who decides who gets in, and you're not the final judge. Your job is to support families by giving them accurate info and pointing them to the right process. That's it. It's a role that's both incredibly helpful and, frankly, protects you.
So let's wrap this up with a simple 4-step framework. Your little cheat sheet. First, always acknowledge the child's strengths. Second, clarify your role. You're an observer, not the committee. Third, explain that a referral is just the start of the journey, not the destination. And finally, redirect any super detailed questions to the GT specialist. This little list will get you through any conversation.
So if you don't remember anything else from this, remember these 3 words: observe, refer, redirect. Observe what you see in your classroom, refer families to the official process, and redirect their specific questions to the experts. If you do that, you support your students, you empower their families, and you build so much trust. That question is no longer awkward, it's an opportunity.